Welcome back, Focus Learners. Today, we're jumping right into a seriously fascinating topic. We're doing an explainer on the great strategic illusion, why playing chess in business is a losing move. In this analysis, we're going to completely break down why the world's absolute favorite strategic metaphor is, well, fundamentally flawed. Let's get right to it. So, I have to ask, are you actually playing the right game? Think about it for a second. When you picture ultimate, genius-level strategy, you probably imagine a master strategist, right? Hunched over a chessboard, thinking 10 steps ahead, brilliantly sacrificing a pawn to trap a knight? It's a super romantic idea. But what if I told you that applying this exact mindset to modern business competition is actually leading you straight toward inevitable ruin? Stick with me here, because by the end of this explainer, the way you look at competition is going to be completely transformed. Okay, let's dive into this. For centuries, military forces have leaned heavily on chess as the ultimate metaphor for strategy. And honestly, on the surface, it makes perfect sense. By the very nature of conflict, commanders absolutely have to understand the intense push and pull of opposing forces. Now, in chess, victory ultimately goes to whoever can best concentrate their shrinking forces onto a specific target. You're maneuvering to trap the enemy king. But to pull that off, you are constantly trading blows, making sacrifices, and literally clearing pieces off the board. And that brings us to the dark, universally accepted truth of the game: inevitable attrition. There's just no way around it. In chess, as the game progresses step by step, both sides lose power. Just picture a chessboard in the late stages of a match. It's mostly empty, right? Even the winner has lost the vast majority of their pieces. Whether you ultimately win or lose, the sheer act of engaging in the conflict means your total power diminishes. Sure, a grandmaster might step in and turn a losing game around, but even they cannot avoid the fundamental reality that playing chess means bleeding resources.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that there actually is a rare, almost mythical exception to this rule of attrition. It's called the scholar's mate. Basically, this is where a player wins incredibly fast, maybe only sacrificing one or two pieces along the way. In military terms, this is the absolute dream scenario, winning the whole war without losing a single soldier. But, as our source material quickly points out, a true scholar's mate only really works against extreme beginners. In fact, among gentlemen chess players, even attempting it is kind of looked down upon, because it implies you're severely underestimating the person across from you. A seasoned opponent, whether they're across a chessboard or on a literal battlefield, is never going to just let you pull off a flawless victory without a vicious fight.
So let's shift gears and look at the corporate sphere. The business world has eagerly, almost obsessively really, adopted these military and chess concepts. We hear the jargon every single day: war games, market penetration, aggressive tactics, capturing territory. Corporate leaders absolutely love viewing their industry as a literal battlefield, and themselves as these brilliant cigar-chomping generals leading the charge. But here is the massive catch. When you trade a market like a chessboard, you inherently adopt the rules of chess. And as we just established, the absolute foundational rule of chess is that engagement requires mutual destruction. Let's walk through exactly how this downward spiral plays out in real life, step by step. Imagine a company trying to win market share. Step 1, they decide to play aggressively, so they slash their prices to win bids. Step 2, boom, they gain that temporary market share. Feels like a brilliant chess move, right? But then the competitor retaliates. Step 3, market prices plummet, sometimes dropping completely below actual operational costs. Our source text highlights some wild real-world examples of this, specifically mentioning textile and shipbuilding companies that deliberately bid below their own costs just to keep their facilities running and their workers busy, which inevitably leads right to step 4. The market itself is completely destroyed. So the crucial point is this deeply tragic irony. You end up ruling over the ashes. A company might aggressively slash prices, outmaneuver their rival, and technically win the price war. They get to claim market leadership. But when they finally look up from the board, they look around in sheer amazement and realize there is no meaningful profit left. The market is decimated. They sacrificed all their margins, their brand value, and the industry's baseline, all just to capture the opponent's king. They won the game, sure, but they totally destroyed the ecosystem they actually need to survive. Let's move to and see how this builds. If chess is fundamentally the wrong game for business, what's the right one? Enter Go. The contrast here is honestly staggering. While chess is entirely about destroying pieces, bleeding power, and essentially ruining the board to get a win, Go is the exact opposite. Go starts with a completely empty board. Your objective isn't to systematically hunt down and eliminate your opponent's pieces. Instead, the goal is capturing space, expanding your territory, and crucially, preserving the board itself. It's a philosophy of creation and spatial control, rather than destruction and pure attrition. And to really appreciate the incredible depth of Go, we have to look at its history. Because this is definitely not some trendy new management fad. The game of Go was developed a staggering 3,000 years ago in China. Just think about that immense longevity for a second. It was later brought to Tokyo by a Japanese envoy way back in the 8th century, where it eventually became deeply ingrained as Japan's national game. For 3 entire millennia, Eastern strategists have been honing this incredible framework of competition that completely bypasses the mutually assured destruction of the Western chessboard. The absolute foundation of this philosophy rests on something called the Goban. That's the traditional name for the playing board used in Go, and as I mentioned, it begins completely empty. Now, when we apply this to business strategy, I want you to view that Goban as a pristine, untouched market. In Go, your true victory isn't achieved by just smashing your competitors' pieces off the table. Not at all. True victory means controlling the largest possible area with the absolute least amount of investment and conflict. You want to capture that market share without destroying your opponent, without depleting your own power, and without dragging the entire industry into a toxic downward spiral. So, you might be wondering, if Go is so vastly superior for sustainable business, why on earth isn't it as popular as chess? Well, the simple answer is a massive barrier to entry. Go requires immense time and dedication. It demands incredibly deep, exhaustive study just to become a mediocre player. While chess relies heavily on direct, logical calculation, Go leans much more on extraordinary intuition and highly advanced abstract strategy. Quietly growing your market share and cleanly pushing out rivals without starting a destructive price war, that requires way more profound knowledge and strategic finesse than just launching a blunt, aggressive attack. It's just inherently much more difficult to master. But what's truly fascinating is how this philosophy extends far beyond the boardroom, circling right back around to modern military strategy. Our source text explicitly points out the massive shift in the global security environment in a post-9/11 world. In this highly complex modern era, security forces and nations simply can't afford the pure attrition of the chessboard anymore. The new imperative absolutely requires forces to control areas, maintain security, and manage regions without initiating those highly destructive, power-draining conflicts. Operating successfully in today's geopolitical landscape literally demands the spatial control and preservation mindset of a Go player. And this brilliantly illustrates a deeply profound shift in thinking, which is perfectly summarized by the author of our source text, Haluk ÜNALDI. He states, "Whether we are soldiers or businessmen, if we want to control the playing field without losing power, we must adopt and perfectly apply the Go philosophy instead of chess." This right here is the ultimate anchor of our analysis today. The goal isn't to bleed your opponent dry while you bleed out right alongside them. The goal is to gracefully and intelligently control the board while retaining your maximum power. So, focused learners, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you step back into your own competitive landscapes, whether that's in your business, your career, or really any strategic endeavor. Take a hard look at your current strategies. Are you trapped in a relentless cycle of attrition, constantly sacrificing your margins, your energy, and your resources just to take a knight or a pawn? Or are you finally ready to elevate your perspective? Will you keep fighting for pieces, or will you start controlling the board? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and always keep looking at the bigger picture.